Hello everybody, we're at Alexander Park. Today's a very special day for a number of reasons. I'll get to some of it later on in the video. We're not actually here to do a video on the park today, as you've seen from the thumbnail. It's all about Oldham Library and all the scandal associated, but I just had to show you the park on this beautiful spring day. It's glorious in Oldham today, and yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. So today's video is about a man called Thomas Mitchell. Now, while we're making our way up to where he used to live, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background and we can show you Park Road. We're actually going to be making our way up to Queen's Road, which is here, just here. Queen's Road is where all the prominent Oldhamers used, well, the majority of the prominent Oldhamers used to live. It's quite some quite famous Oldhamers in terms of things that they're associated with that have lived up here. Now it's residential and care home. But right, let me get to the story, because I've been dying to. I've actually put a thing on my Facebook the other day saying I can't wait to bring this story. It's actually another story, but I found this one and I wanted to tell this one first. That's the Park Lodge there, I think, that used to be inhabited. And there's another one at the top end called Glodick Lodge, so I don't know if that was called Park Lodge, but I'm assuming that probably is it. Anyway, I'm waffling. Right, Thomas Mitchell. Thomas Mitchell was born in the mid 1800s over in Canada, Montreal, I think. And yeah, he basically made his way to England in the early 1870s, I think, and it might have been 60s. I'll put the dates in. Anyway, this is an example of the houses that you're going to get on here. I'm just going to walk up and show them you. We're going to get to the crux of the story, which is going to be while we film the library. But I wanted to show you where these people actually lived. So, yeah, so anyway, he moved to England, and he must have sailed into Newcastle, because he ended up meeting this woman from Newcastle. His wife, who he married, she was called Emma. Now, he ended up having, I think it was 4 children with Emma throughout their marriage. Actually, no, I think it must have been more than... Yeah, no, I think it was 4. I know that some died in infancy, which is really sad, and we're going to go and look at the grave as well in this video. But yeah, so anyway, this is where he lived, on Queen's Road. Now, sadly, his house isn't standing anymore. This one here is called Shakespeare Terrace. That's absolutely beautiful. And what's nice about these houses is that people have still got a majority of the you know, the original doors. That's an original door there. I'm not going to zoom in on people's windows, but this is Beach House. This isn't where he lived, by the way. Now, the other story that I was going to tell you, by the way, the man who I'm going to tell you about in the next video, he lived at 17. Now, that house has still got all the windows. It's beautiful. It's got the columns by the door. That's the door where he would have gone in. And he was an influential Oldhamer. And he's actually got some really strong ties with something to do with the park, but that's a separate video, and I'm waffling again. So, Thomas Mitchell ended up going to Newcastle, met his wife up there, got married, and everything seemed hunky-dory. He basically came to Oldham, and he trained under this railway architect. Look at that today. Yeah, he trained under this railway architect, and he was actually, it was quite rare at the time for an architect to actually have qualifications, and he had qualifications. Anyway, he ended up moving to Oldham. Now, they had a couple of addresses in Oldham. He had a premises at number 4 Clegg Street in Oldham. I think it might still be standing. A lot of the houses got knocked down years ago, but as you know, some of them are still standing near where the old bus station used to be. Ended up having this architectural practice in Oldham, and let's just show you the quality of these houses. I mean, they are phenomenal. His house, by the way, is just there, but the reason why I'm not going to film it is because it's not there anymore. In fact, it's that one there. It would have been here, but the original big house that would have stood there is no more. So there really isn't any point in filming it because it's not relevant. Anyway, so yeah, he lived number 4 Clegg Street, and that's where they had premises there. So he ran an architectural practice from there. Now he had a couple of partners, but it didn't really seem to work out. And it doesn't say why it didn't work out. It just says that it didn't work out. So I think the last partnership that he had, that lasted probably around about 2 to 3 years, and then in the end they just agreed to go the separate ways. I don't think there was any shenanigans afterwards. Look at that. Yeah, I don't think there was. Look at that door. Look at that. Yeah, I don't think there was any shenanigans. They just you know, they just agreed to go separate ways, and that was it. So it's anyone's guess as to why that didn't work out. But it didn't work out, and then Oldham Council basically were going out to all the architects in the borough and saying, right, we're going to build this free library, and we want everyone to sort of submit their plans on what it should look like and everything else. So Thomas did that. He put plans together for his vision for the Oldham Free Library, and he won the contract. So Thomas Mitchell, Canadian, moved to Oldham, lived on Queen's Road, one of the most affluent areas of the borough of the time. Still is, probably. It's beautiful houses. Yeah, he basically won the contract and he built the library as it is now. I'm going to tell you the rest of the story when we get to the library, but what happened is just, it's unbelievable, honestly, it really is. It's just filth and scandal. So I will see you now at the library. Right, well, unfortunately Clegg Street number 4 doesn't exist. I suspect it was probably up this way. That's Yorkshire Street going down, and then you've got probably there with the second one in, wasn't it? Third one in. Anyway, just make our way down by the back of the Lyceum. Right, now let's get to the story. So Thomas Mitchell, prominent architect of Oldham, he built the Oldham Library that we're seeing here. We'll have a good look around it. It's familiar to a lot of people, but we're going to look anyway. Right, this is the story. So in 1881 he was given the commission to build the library. Now the work was due to start the following year. Because he'd been given the contract and it was through Oldham Council, they basically said to him, look, every month you're going to have to come for a meeting. Now the meeting would, I imagine, be discussing planning, how the building's coming along, costs, you know, except everything that goes into building a building. It would have been no different then as to it is now, I imagine, only now there's probably more red tape. Anyway, in this meeting were a fella called Mr. Booth. I don't know his first name, but Mr. Booth was the town clerk, so I imagine he was in charge of finances, making sure everything stayed on budget, making sure the relevant people were reported to, etc, etc. Anyway, him and Thomas, we'll call him Thomas, him and Thomas had a row, and certain things were said, and it was an unpleasant situation. So basically Thomas Mitchell said, tell you what, for the remainder of this project I'm not coming to these meetings unless there's an absolute paramount need for me to be here. Anyhow, that's how it were, and he carried on building it, and obviously he completed it because we're looking at it right now. But the Mayor of Oldham at the time, I think he was called William Rye, but I might be wrong on that one, I'll have to check on the dates. This is 1882, 1883. So the Mayor of Oldham at the time basically said something about him, and he weren't happy about it, Thomas Mitchell. I don't know what he said, but basically Thomas Mitchell took him to court for slander. And so he took the Mayor of Oldham to court, and he actually won. He won a slander case against him, so he must have called him something. You know, or said something about his workmanship maybe, I don't know, you can only surmise, can't you? Look at them original lamps there. Anyway, yeah, so he took him to court, but it was the worst thing that he could have done. So he took him to court for slander, But the fact is, it just damaged his business, because then no one to deal with him, because he was a trouble causer, weren't he? So even though he won his case, you know, it put him in a bad situation. Anyway, that were nothing compared to what he had coming next. So he's struggling with his business and everything. Everything's crap. He's not getting any work. Look at these beautiful doors. Yeah, he's not getting any work from anyone, and times are hard. Anyway, as you know, he's still living in that house in Queen's Road. Still living there with his wife. Everything, as far as she's concerned, is hunky-dory. Anyway, rat-tat-tat, I think it was the 11th of November of 1882 or 1883, there was a knock at the door. And there was a woman there. Anyway, she had a chat with his wife, and the wife said, do me a favour, come back tonight when he gets in for his tea, because I think what you've got to say, he needs to be, you know, he needs to be here. So this woman says, right, no worries, I'll pop back later. Anyway, about 6:30 at night, I'm assuming, I'm taking a bit of artistic licence on that one, but around about 6:30 that night, Thomas has come in, tea's on table, the door goes, I've just noticed that. We know who the bloody mayor was. It was James Yates. I have never, ever noticed that in all my entire life. So I'll put a picture of James in. He was an MD as well. Find out about him. I know a bit about a few MDs from Oldham of that time, so I'll look back and see if he's... Anyway, I'm digressing. So yeah, he sat down eating his tea, and there's a knock at the door. His wife goes to the door. This woman walks in, she's got this kid in tow. I think you know where I'm going with this story, don't you? But this kid's in tow, and the wife says to him, you know, Mrs... I can't remember her name, I think it's Mrs. Wilson, no, Mrs. Wilson, I think she's called. No, Mrs. Wilson, don't you? So Thomas goes, no, never met her before in my life, genuinely didn't recognise the woman. Anyway, the woman decides to jog his memory. She went, well, if you remember, Mr. Mitchell, I'm the woman that you left your child with when you and the supposed Mrs. Mitchell dropped the kid off for me to look after. And the reason why I'm knocking on your door tonight is because you haven't been keeping up with the payments. Now, this is obviously because he's having business troubles, isn't he? You know, all right, he's built this superb library, but he's struggling financially, so he's stopped these payments thinking that the woman's not going to find him, maybe. But she has found him, and not only that, she's knocked on the door and spoke to his wife, which is the worst thing she could have done. He actually said, apparently when she told him, he went white, and he said he felt very, very ill. Very ill. You would feel friggin' ill, wouldn't you? So I'm going off on a tangent. So anyway, yeah, he felt poorly. And he said to her, you know what, you could have spared us the facts of this. And she went, well, you know, I have spared you for the past few years, but the fact is that you've not kept up your payments, and I can't afford to keep the kid, and it's not my kid to keep, and blah blah blah. So this is a new library, by the way. There's a walk bridge that takes you from one to the other. What was I saying? Yeah, so basically that were that. So you can imagine, can't you? There were a big do in that house that night. The balloon went up, and you know, think about the time, right? At this time, women didn't have any rights. The rights were given through their husband. So we're going to go and look at his wife and kid's grave. We're going to do that after here. Emma Mitchell. She must have had some nerve. Not nerve as in you've got a nerve. I mean, she must have had like balls of steel. That's the only thing I can think of, because in a time when a woman was nothing without her husband, she thought, I'm not having any of this. And she took him to court. She divorced him. She petitioned for divorce. Now apparently he pleaded no contest. Basically just said, yep, I've done it. Didn't try to sort of get away with it. And she was granted a divorce. But the knock-on effect to that was that basically he was financially ruined then. He was worth £1,000. Now, at the time in 1882, £1,000 would have been a lot of money. Let's walk back round the other way. Right, so anyway, just going back to the philandering. The woman that you were having the affair with was a woman called Marie Marshall. Now, I've already looked to see if I can find her grave, but she must have married, because, or she's moved out the area, because I can't find any record of her. That doesn't mean to say she's not buried in Oldham, because not everybody's, you know, easy to find. She could be in this cemetery, she could be in Glodick, Greenacres, sorry. But I've just come here to find her grave. In fact, I think it's up here. Emma's grave, that is. So yeah, anyway, what I was saying about Emma was she must have been a strong woman, because in the 1800s, you know, it was all about men. They gave you your identification in that time. Women couldn't even vote. So, you know, for a woman to then be that pissed off, to then go and divorce her husband, it was a big thing. But anyway, listen, she took him to cleaners. He had £1,000, as I said, he had £1,000. By the time she'd finished with him, he didn't have anything. I think she ended up with a fortune of about 600 quid, which, as we've said back then, was a lot of money, plenty to live off. But we'll get to that in a minute. And he basically was ruined. He couldn't get any work because he'd sued the mayor and it was public and everyone knew, and he was known as a trouble causer. Basically, he committed professional suicide. And where is this bleeding grave? I found it the other day in preparation. Now I'm wondering if it's up there, but I don't think so. I think it's down here. Anyway, we'll keep looking. I've got plenty to tell you yet. So yeah, that was the upshot of it all. So he basically was you know, ruined financially. I think he had a debt of 1,046 and he only had £1,000, and he had to give 600 to wife. Loads had gone on, legal costs which he had to pay. I don't know what he did. You know what, this is interesting actually. I don't know what he ended up doing, and what I mean by that is he didn't die in Oldham. Remember, he was Canadian. He didn't go back to Canada. Where is this bleeding grave? He didn't go back to Canada. He went living in New York, and he died at the age of 55 from heart disease. So I'm assuming he had some sort of heart attack, or I don't know. Where is this bloody grave? Right, I'm going to find it and then we'll pick it up. I knew I found it. Right, so this is the stone where Emma Mitchell's buried. So it's pretty sad really. So it says, "Love and remembrance of the children of Thomas and Emma Mitchell of Alexandra Park, Oldham." So that address, they used to say it was Alexandra Park, but it was Queen's Road. Eleanor Roberta died March the 7th, 1875, aged 1 year and 11 months. Charles Edward died April 25th, 1875, in the 8th year of his age. Also, the above Emma Mitchell, who died December 13th, 1918, aged 76, and her mother, Eleanor Juliet Cameron, who died April 12th, 1882. Oh, so you know what, when she was going through all that with her bloody husband, her mother had just died as well. Poor gal. Also of Winifred, youngest daughter of Thomas and Emma. She died on February the 9th, 1955, aged 76. I've got photographs, so I'll put them in for you. Oh, and also Alice Maud, daughter of Thomas and Emma Mitchell, who died 7th of January, I think that's 1916, aged 90 years. And the stone maker was Fisher Son and Co, Brook Street in Huddersfield. So they actually brought the stone from Huddersfield. So to surmise, to wrap this story up, what I was going to say before was, I'm wondering, you know, if when he frigged off over to America, because he couldn't stay here, he had to go to a different country because he had no career in this country. It was ruined. Plus, obviously, his wife, but he had no money, no prospects. The best thing he could do would be move on. So that's what he did. And I'm just wondering, you know, whether he took his bit on the side with him. I said bit on the side, I don't mean it degrading to that lady, but that's what she would have been to Emma, wouldn't she? Do you know what I mean? She'd be the other woman, and You know, I was just thinking then, it's pretty bad because during the time when them children died, I'm not calling him for it, but while her children were dying, he were having a baby with another woman. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, anyway, you know, that is life. These things happen. People make decisions, not necessarily the right decisions, and sometimes when you make bad decisions you end up with bad outcomes, and I think he suffered enough, didn't he? You know, you don't know what his marriage was like, you don't know anything like that. You know, I suppose I'm being quite judgmental there, and really, you know, no one knows what his marriage was like, but that was the life of Thomas Mitchell. And the platoon, by the way, let me just give you a little fact on this that one of my subscribers told me. Apparently in the World War, just after, well, the Second World War, they opened up this tomb because one of them died. Let's see if we can see an inscription. One of them died serving the country. So what they did in the 40s, they opened it up and they put him in. I think he is on here because I've seen one, like, and there's a remembrance. Yeah, this one died shortly after Armistice. That's 1892, so no, that's not that one. Oh, hang on, no, yeah, born in 1892. After Armistice Day. Oh, poor bugger. Anyway, there's one here, lieutenant. So they had a lot of lads that died in the war from the family. Anyway, they opened the tomb up, and apparently there's John Platt's inscription, the man from Alexander Park. Yeah, apparently they opened the tomb and it's all set out downstairs. There's glass cabinets, and behind each glass cabinet is a coffin of each of the, not everyone mentioned on this crypt, on this stone, by the way, is in the grave. But yeah, apparently they're all there, down in there, behind glass coffins. You'll never get in. I mean, you'd have to get some pretty heavy equipment to get in there, I would imagine. And that's it. So, right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got an excellent one coming up. Really, really interesting. I found a lot of facts out recently. I just can't wait to tell the story. So I'm going to go and film that on Saturday for you. I've done this one after work. So I flew straight out after I'd finished work and thought, you know, I'll film it. So I really hope you enjoy it. And let me know your comments below. And we've reached 1,000 subscribers. I'm so happy. In fact, we're at 1,005 when I left the house. So yeah, excellent. So goodbye from my favourite place then, Cheddarton Cemetery, and I'll see you in the next one.